Welcome to No Apologies on Beck. I am your host, Lori Hins. I'm pleased to have with me today, once again, Justus Knight of Restricted Republic. His program is always breaking news, and we are happy to have him on the program tonight. Justus, thanks for joining us.
Man, I'm happy to be back. Thank you for the re-invite. It appears a lot has changed quickly since we last spoke.
So true. And I thought we would talk FBI this time because so many interesting revelations have come out just in the last, actually, couple of weeks now about what's going on with the FBI. So I was hoping that you would fill us in on the latest.
Yeah, I mean, it's near and dear to you guys' heart out there. I think it was Jody Carlson, correct?
Correct. Yep, you got it.
Puts up a Facebook post and finds out the real power of the FBI and how quickly they show up knocking on her door, which it would have been missed on most, but it can't be missed on most because take freedom of speech, throw it out the door, take any concern for a citizen, throw it out the door. But they knocked on her door, not to threaten her, of course. This is not a threat. We didn't know how to read your Facebook post correctly. And to read it, which I think, and I'll paraphrase some of this, but I think it was when a long train of, abuses.
Yep.
Invariably the same object. Let me just pull it up because I have it for you.
Yep.
There we go.
It's from the Declaration of Independence.
It is our right and our duty, she states, right, to throw off such government. Don't throw off. Don't do that. Just obey. And it's the quintessential example. Don't obey, and here's what's going to happen. It's happening everywhere right now. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. So the FBI has made some changes over the years. It used to be a revered and once vaunted, amazing bureau, but now they've managed to get out of the box in so many ways, and it's so much more politicized, Justice.
That is exactly correct. It is. It's been completely politicized. It's now a tool. It's a weapon used by, right now, one party. And that's a shame. And I don't want to make the declaration everybody in the FBI is bad, because that's not the truth. There's a lot of whistleblowers coming out right now who aren't standing for it anymore. They're releasing information. It's going to relate to our story we're going to cover a little bit later in the segment. But how can you take something as the FBI and the CIA, which are to be nonpartisan by their very nature, and now turn them as weapons against the American people when the American people state anything that the standing party does not want to be addressed nor spoken? And that's exactly what you saw happen in your community. And it's happening in communities across the country right now.
I saw one of your programs recently, and it had some quotes, and you're great about making sure that you cite everything. So we're going to, piggyback on that a little bit. And there was a Washington Times article that you cited in your recent report, and it said, whistleblower, just as you said, reveals FBI wrongly labeled Hunter Biden evidence as disinformation.
You want to drive me crazy with any story, have me talk about the Hunter Biden saga. It leads into so many different talking points. The evidence that so many of us been covering for a year. Remember when Tony Bobulinski came out, Archer came out, go through the entire cast of characters. This has been so intrinsically interwoven with great amounts of detail, bank accounts, transactions. It's irrefutable evidence. And now mainstream media it's so irrefutable, the mainstream media has to come out and admit it now. And it leads directly to the president's office. And related, unrelated, I don't care what you try to shield to me, because it's all lies as we've now found it to be. But that does affect a lot more than they're letting on. It affected, ultimately, what we'll talk about later, is an entire election. You can't have what's happening in your community. You can't have the influx of China within our own borders to such a degree, to farmland, to electronics. You saw us cover that with the transmitters that are sitting in your backyard, and then not disclose to the American people direct conflicts of interest. And that right now is what resides in the Biden family.
I noticed that there were things starting about the time of the Virginia election, and the parents were being demonized as domestic terrorists, and they had added a designation, to give them a free pass to arrest people, essentially, who were just parents trying to get their children out of the bathroom so that they didn't get attacked, and I think that's when it came on my radar.
How many incidents it started with COVID? You remember? Let me correct that statement. It started long before COVID. It started when they started changing the curriculum, and parents objected. But we hadn't hit the real oppression yet. Then COVID hit, and parents started to issue their concerns. And the FBI immediately, how did they respond to that? Well, if you go in there and you were to stand in front of a school board in a pre-scheduled meeting and voice your opinion maybe too loudly or against what the school board feels, you're a domestic terrorist now.
And then they added quotas, though. That's the part that I can't even get my head wrapped around. They've got quotas to inflate these numbers to just make sure that they get what they want?
The term domestic terrorism in itself is white supremacy, domestic terrorism. You can bundle a lot of these together. And what they're doing there is if you want to allow your agenda to flow freely through a cycle, through a populace, you have to convince the populace that you're facing a common enemy. And how do you do that? You got to make the common enemy number larger. They're doing that with many representatives now within the House of Representatives, within Senate, and they did it to us, the American people. Your own beliefs, simple beliefs, believing in the Constitution was weaponized against you. Your religion was weaponized against you. Your belief in what is education and what shouldn't be in education is weaponized against you. And they did that through terms of white supremacy, bigotry, hatred, racism that didn't exist. And the only way they could do that is to build the quotas so the FBI could identify it. They could put it on a nice little log and say, look here, here's everything we got. Oh, now you see how many people are involved in this? We have to take action.
Yep, and it's all the way to the top too. We're talking Christopher Wray in this case too, because he, was the one who had artificially inflated some numbers. So that's another really disappointment and terrifying, really.
Yeah, and you're seeing evidence of that now, and I believe you have a clip with Jim Jordan writing to many members now, Christopher Wray being one of those, coming out and finally declaring it to the public as to what's occurring. The declaration alone it's in a magnitude and scale unseen and not understood by enough. Your audience does, thankfully. My audience does, thankfully. But does people outside this audience understand that? How can the FBI falsely misclass a group of people? They have violated their very basic civil rights. And it's allowed through multiple branches of government now. And when you follow the legislations as they're going through and watch how they're worded, even take the most recent Build Back Broke Act, rendition number 55 that's going through, all the promises they made to you, they're gone. They said they weren't going to tax anybody under the $400,000 tax bracket. They are. Everybody has become, it's feeling as if everybody's become the enemy of the government at this point. And it's a horrible position to be in for the country.
It is. Welcome back to No Apologies. I am your host, Lori Hins, and with me is Justus Knight of Restricted Republic, and we are so glad to have you on, Justus. Thanks for coming back on the show. We're talking FBI. Last time when we just went to break, we were going to talk about a letter that Jim Jordan penned to Christopher Wray, the Honorable Christopher Wray, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And he says in the very beginning of it, we continue to hear from brave whistleblowers about disturbing conduct at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. From recent protected disclosures, we have learned that FBI officials are pressuring agents to reclassify cases as, quote, domestic violent extremism, even if the cases do not meet the criteria for such a classification. And that, my friends, is just the first line of the excoriating letter from Jim Jordan of Ohio.
One of many, isn't it? And how do you get that? How did he come about that information? FBI whistleblower comes out again. Whistleblower allegations, the FBI's padding numbers. Hey, Johnny, do me a favor over there. No, I know we really didn't do anything, but is there any way you can manipulate the data slightly? We need more of those domestic terrorism numbers coming in, because honestly, there's none there. At least not in the numbers they want.
Right.
How can I read it? I was going out of my mind. It's not the first Jim Jordan letter to Christopher Wray. He's the only one who happens to speak and put things on paper because he just doesn't have fear of the repercussions of what they'll be. And the best way to do that is stay front and center. And thankfully he has. I hope more become front and center.
Now, in addition, I'm sorry to interrupt that.
Oh, please.
In addition to that, there are so many other things that the FBI is doing at the same time, too. So we go back to the Hunter Biden thing, and we get the laptop. We're looking at all of these emails. I've seen these emails, and he's talking about the big guy and 10% and all this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, why am I the only one who's seeing this? This is interesting. So now Fox News, which is a mainstream press outlet, decides that they're going to put something up. Let's take a look at that headline too. And go figure, there it is. He did. Joe Biden actually met with at least 14 of Hunter's business associates while vice president. Well, hello, Chuck Grassley. We've known that for a while, but thank you for getting on that.
I could tell you that you want two topics to get me going. One will be the Hunter, one will be COVID. Those two will get me going every time. How much blatant corruption is possible? How much does it take to take over? I mean, this has been 2.5 to 3 years of suppressed information from the laptop, which, oh, by the way, the FBI kind of maybe misclassed. Sorry about that. Just shelve that information. We don't need that right now, which will lead to our final segment, by the way, called election interference. Very basic. If you withhold derogatory information from the American public, that is impeding the election process. But I digress, because now we have the likes of Xi Jinping, we have the likes of Ho Jinping, we have the likes of Dong Wengong. These are, names to most be like, who are you talking about? Well, we're talking about one who disappeared, one who got arrested, and one nobody knows really what he's had. And those just happen to so be, Hunter Biden's buddies. Now, I know it's not hearsay either. There's money transfers clearly done. Everybody heard the term "the big guy." Boy, Tony Bubble, they would have loved to push that story aside, but guess what? Emails pop up, and what'd they call him?
The big guy.
The big guy.
I know, exactly right. And it's kind of astounding too that this is finally coming up. But how do you unwind it? I mean, how do you even find all of the tentacles and all of the mess that they've gotten us into as a country, as the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
Well, did he or did he not violate FARA? Let's start there. Did he accept gifts from a foreign nation, which is now documented on his laptop in pictures? Did he accept money and transactions, which is documented in pictures and emails? The case is already done. If we had a normal Department of Justice, there'd already be a special counsel appointed. The fact that there is not, oh yeah, that's right, Justice, he's getting sued. Oh boy, slap him on the wrist, give him his little fine, and let him walk away. And that's what they intend on doing. They don't ever intend on ever taking it any further than that. It's why people like you, people like me, are screaming from the rooftops and say, look at the trail. And it's not only Hunter, by the way, you go all the way to James too. And then now Fox has taken it, that's right, all the way to the big guy. 14 meetings. He said, by the way, I never discussed any business dealings with Hunter. I'm exhausted by it. I am literally exhausted by the talking point.
I say that, and I say I can't roll my eyes far enough back in my head for that type of a statement. I'm the same way with you. And also, then you're talking about the dealings that he had. And we've had in our China Conquest Inside Job series talk of Steve Lackus. We've talked about Hunter's associates. Some of the other people that you have mentioned, we've talked about also in our reports. And it goes full circle back to China, too, which is even more disturbing.
Yeah, the first thing you have to understand, there's not a company in China. It's not controlled by China. Just take that. There's nothing they don't control, because the minute they decide to shut you down, you're done. Take Xi Jinping. He was one of the richest men in the world, but done. If they could do that to him, who do you think they don't control? Let's call a spade, get past the PC talking points. Political correctness was created to suppress the masses. Just know that right away, because it stops you from just saying what you want to say. The I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. Just go through Hudson West alone. Go through their business documents. See that a lot of these partnerships still exist. They're still allowed to go on. Nobody says a word. Quiet. Well, Fox did, right? 14 meetings. And that wasn't only China. China's been here. They have been working in the political background for a very, very long time. Just think about the spies who date some of our representatives, right? We're supposed to be quiet about that too. Sorry, Laurie, I guess I can't talk about that. Wait,
I know about them too. It makes me laugh every time I say fung, but whatever. So no, it's all true. Now, I want to just really quick kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because I saw something else on your program that was really fascinating to me and incredibly disturbing. It was called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. And I looked it up and I looked at the page. Let's take a look at that page for a second too. And I'm mystified. We've got the Pope is on this page.
The Pope is signed on. Yeah, it's one of the story. I'll probably take this most serious and take a different tone, because this one it's scary. They've taken what is now a grand group of banks. The banks are so arrogant, including Bank of America. I reference on Bank of America's site, they call themselves the Guardians. Bank of America is not hiding, and it's on their public site. I have to do a deep search for this, for the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, now joined by the Vatican. And they said it was, he had asked for it. Well, he asked for it. They granted it to him. And now they have found a way to control government without needing government permission. If you don't agree with what they have to say, you don't agree with their green control initiatives, guess what? You don't get that loan.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. I am Lori Hins. With me, Justus Knight of Restricted Republic, and we are talking all things FBI. Justus, thanks for being on. We started this by talking about a door knock in Grand Forks, North Dakota on a woman's home, and the FBI was probably trying to pad their numbers of domestic terrorists and looked at a post of the, Declaration of Independence. And now you've got some in Congress. You've got Chuck Grassley of Iowa, you've got Jim Jordan of Ohio, and they are sounding the alarm that there is something going on with the FBI that needs to stop.
How would you like to be Chuck Grassley? I could only imagine how this man wakes up in the morning, knows that he's going to basically walk into a brick wall with everything he says, but he hasn't quit. And I respect him for that. He's never quit. Every American take notes from him, and nobody's perfect. I get that. Trust me, I could pull politics out of Jim Jordan, Chuck Grassley that I don't agree with. You're never going to agree fully with the politician. If you do, go look in the mirror real quick. Something's wrong with you, because it should never happen, because everybody has their imperfections. But the imperfection is what is happening domestically. Chuck Grassley has been onto the Hunter Biden story for longer than most. He started putting into very clear-cut, huge cards that he put in front of everybody. Hey, guys, here's the bank transactions. I have them all documented. And that's Hunter Biden's name. That's China's name. And know what they did about it? Nothing. Silence. So now Grassley's still persisting on that. He's now identified, in my mind, it's the FBI, keeping so much of this information suppressed. Sure enough, it's verified through a whistleblower. Hey, Chuck, you're right. By the way, we took all that data that was on there that could have validated you further, and we classified that misinformation because we didn't want anybody to know that, before the election. Quiet for a moment.
That's the bottom line, too. And now I'm just, for those of you at home keeping score, we've got parents as domestic terrorists.
Yes.
We've got Hunter Biden emails and laptop and stuff that's all been suppressed. And I haven't even talked about January 6th stuff yet. I haven't even gotten to that yet. There's stuff that we haven't even learned completely yet about January 6th and the FBI's involvement.
I was trying to see if there's a trash can. I was almost going to vomit real fast.
When you gotta hurl.
When you said January 6th, the words they're looking for, just so everybody's very clear, is they're looking for Donald Trump somewhere in some record to say, everyone attack the Capitol and stop this transition of power now on my behalf. They've searched long and high for it. They've come up with misleading. They've had people stand in front that are lying, but they can't find those words. All they can do is attempt to twist and manipulate minor details. And guess what? How many phone calls have you made? How many times when you've been upset have you called a friend or a family member and said something and been like, hey, boy, that could be misconstrued the wrong way. But for Donald Trump, that's not okay. Nope, no mistakes. You can't say one word wrong, but yet they still haven't been able to close the case down. So they drag it on and they drag it on because they can't find the words or the evidence they need.
Now, the FBI keeps interfering with all of these different things. And there is a Federalist article that you had on your program as well. I'd like to pull that one up. But it says the FBI keeps interfering in presidential elections. Then some words that really look appealing to me. Time to disband it. I'd like to do away with a couple of different ones. I'd like to get rid of the Department of Education while you're at it. But FBI first would be okay with me. But how does one disband something so large and so overreaching?
That's easy. Trump has a plan for that. He can dismiss a great deal of them. And I'd like him to start with one name in particular. It's a last name. It's the last name Auten, A-U-T-E-N. So Auten, who suddenly was responsible, by the way, for shelving so much of the Hunter Biden laptop as disinformation, was the same FBI agent during the last election, who decided to, support the Russia collusion narrative. to allow for that dossier to be validated without any evidence that it was even valid information, but push it through. The same FBI agent. You see, that's why I say it's not the whole of FBI. It would feel that way at times, but there's good people there. Maybe you have a child or a grandchild there, but it's these agents, these representatives who have long since surpassed the norm of being non-politicized. And they are taking this and they're weaponizing it for their agendas. And Auden is the quintessential example of what was just called out.
Yeah, that is. This is time. This is the time to start doing some house cleaning, and particularly this makes it more important than ever to make sure that we can, as conservatives, take over the House of Representatives, maybe the Senate as well, at this midterm election coming up in November. Last minute here, Justice.
I completely agree. And I ask your audience, whenever you're having these conversations, you notice, I know Lori does it. I know I try to do it. I always try to tie a specific example and name into any story I tell. The reason being is then you put yourself above the conspiracy theory. They know you know your details. They know your information. And that's how you'll convince people. There's no question, Lori, we have to take over the House of Representatives. We have to have a house cleaning. So much of this has to be turned over because I love this country. You love this country. And it's the only way we're ever going to save it.
I feel the exact same way. And if you have not yet checked him out online, just search for Restricted Republic. Justus Knight, thank you so much for being on the program again. Great stuff.